Gaming is for friends.
I thought this music was so epic.
We all like talking about gaming.
The only thing that I disliked about the old game.
There are so many different conversations started by gaming.
Oh, I forgot I have you.
This could be anything.
Okay, walk in that green goo. Oh, nope. That's a no.
Anything Gaming Podcast. Hi, and welcome to Anything Gaming, the podcast about anything gaming. We're on episode 11 now, so we're getting through some episodes, and this is the Halloween. I don't know if I did that good enough. Kind of wrap up. We're a bit behind. We've just celebrated Halloween, so now we're going to go through Halloween games and talk everything scary and different. And obviously, Woody is here. He's ready to be that guy that scares me.
Oh yes. I will bring terror and frightening situations to all involved. I just want to say hello. Yeah, I'm a little cold over here. It's Halloween has come and gone. It was a good Halloween this year. There was a good turnout of kids around here. They always come for their candy and stuff. A lot of cool costumes. A lot of Mario costumes. Made me happy this year. I think it's because the movie's still fresh in people's minds.
But do you get disappointed when they're not scary Halloween costumes? Like, would you prefer the more gruesome stuff?
It's hard to say that because I when I dressed up for Halloween, there were some costumes that I dressed up as that you wouldn't necessarily say was scary. Like one of my favorites, 6 years old, I think I was like some type of ninja. Like I had the stars. Now ninjas can be scary, you walk in a house, you see a ninja, I'd be scared, but they're not like horror scary, they're not like otherworldly scary. They're just, you don't want to mess with these guys scary, that's all. So like I've been on that side. So no, as long as you get the point through, and if you're going to do that though, you got to put some effort, like make it look good.
See, I'm all for the scary Halloween costume. I don't I'm happy if you do Mario, but then you zombify him. A zombie Mario, I would be impressed with that.
That would be cool, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've seen some good ones. I remember about 10 years ago, one night when I was giving out candy, this girl, I don't know, 10 to 12, it wasn't the best costume, but she was dressed as a clicker from The Last of Us. And this was the year it came up for the first time. I gave her extra candy. I was impressed.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you went there, I was like, okay, you get some. If you got a good clever costume, I got to give you a couple.
Double
more,
the candy. Double the
candy.
Yeah.
You worked for this. But I'm definitely ready to discuss some scary games, horror games, unsettling games, of course. Did you break into the Halloween season with any scary games? Did you revisit any scary games or play any new ones?
I did play a new one. I'll get to that in a second. But I wanted to start a little bit of a debate to start with 2D horror games. I find that they're not very scary. I find, how can you be scared by something that you can see that the ghosts or the zombies are coming from you every different angle? If you can see them coming, how can they jump scare you? I just don't find them scary. So I thought I'd start with that debate first, and then we'll get into the game that was actually a 2D game that did give me the bit of the creeps.
Well, okay, since I'm going to start off with this, I hope we're discussing the difference between a game that elicits anxiety, potential jump scares, and a horror game.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, those are two different entities. If you're talking about intense, like, oh my God, what was that kind of game? Play Contra, play Ninja Gaiden, or Gaiden, whatever. I mean, they're not scary games, they're not horror games, but they're intense. You will get frightened. Your heart rate will beat up in some way, but it won't be in a necessarily like otherworldly horror tone. If you want something like that, of course, you're gonna have. For me personally, there were, you had your Atari Halloween games, things like that. That was my thing. But I played Castlevania. Now, there's no jump scares. The only real scary part is if you got like no health and you're going to the Grim Reaper to fight him with like, a knife. Then that's scary. You got to be scared. Be frightened when you're there because there's no hope at that point. But not necessarily like jump scary. There was nothing like that. And of course, given the limitations of the graphics, you weren't going to see like someone getting it disemboweled with a knife or anything like that. There's no real blood in the original Castlevania that I can think of. It would come in later games like Symphony of the Night, but nothing then. You add other games too, like Splatterhouse was quite violent. That was for the TurboGrafx. I'm pretty sure, at the very least, a sequel came out on Genesis, Mega Drive. Now that game was not jump scary at all, but it was gory. It was supposed to be gory, but even then, it wasn't especially blah. But the cool thing about that game was it was a clear homage to the horror movies of the time. Your character looks like Jason, and I think that's one thing that helped a lot of those games is they more or less just saw what the movies were doing. Even Castlevania, if you look hard at Castlevania, it's more or less the Hammer series of Dracula movies. Like at least like the visuals and the architecture, very heavily inspired by that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these horror games are coming into their own and actually becoming so popular nowadays because they can scare the crap out of you now. So back in the 80s and that, we had horror game, what we thought was a horror game. I suppose that Doom was almost one of the first horror games in some respects. It wasn't a jump scare thing, but I mean, there was slightly frightening moments in that. But when they started really increasing the graphics on 3D games, that's when horror games actually came into their own. And that's why I think they're just going up and up on a trajectory because of the way that the graphics have come along.
I mean, like you can't deny the fact that the better the audio, the better the video, the more possibilities and opportunities you have to elicit that scared reflex from a horror game. And I mean, big shout out right now to PSVR. I've been playing through Resident Evil Village, and that's different. Now, Village is, even though it's a horror game, it's a little actiony in a lot of areas, you know what I mean? That's just the way it's always been. Even if honestly, even the first one, there's still action to it. But just like having it all around you now, the sounds and everything, that alone is unsettling. Like, and the fact that like you kind of know it's virtual reality because the Uncanny Valley isn't quite broken. That just adds to how creepy it is. Just that fact. So it's so like otherworldly, and it's definitely a step up then from Sweet Home, which fun game, but was a little limited in how it can often like unsettle you. Unsettlement is like I think a game's biggest trick. If they can pull it off, if they can make you genuinely uneasy, that's great. And then horror games is usually a testament to doing that.
Yeah. So what then was your first horror scare game? The first horror game, not like like you.
If I have to go a little further ahead in the timeline. For me, the first game that I think was like a great scary horror game that one had some jump scares, two had some unsettling imagery, three great soundtrack to boot, and four, why it doesn't have to be perfect, completely perfectly playable game. For me, that first one was probably Silent Hill.
Oh yeah.
I think so. I can't say Resident Evil because even the first one was and it was great action. I love the first one, and I love Resident Evil 2. But those were more about like, you were blasting zombies, you got ammo. Not that you don't in Silent Hill, that's how you fight people. But there was definitely more of an emphasis on like exploring, I guess you could say, in Silent Hill, maybe because, you are exploring a town. So it kind of gave that like almost like now there were no boundaries. Before everything was coming at you, so at least you knew it was coming and you were ready for it. But now you didn't know what was coming. Yeah. At least that's how I felt the first time playing it back in 1999. I was
well, my first scary game was actually 6 years after that. It was Condemned. That game scared the crap out of me back in the day.
That's a good one. That game gets so slept on, it's criminal. Like that was, I think maybe because it was like kind of an early 360 game.
Yeah.
And so it just got kind of swept up. But it was a great game. I did not beat it. I got about a quarter of the way, borrowed it from a friend, gave it back. At the
Yeah.
time it was there in that magical time when just like all these new things were coming out. So you're just gonna keep up with it all. But it was very solid. The control, like the gameplay itself, was good. I think it was better than Silent Hills.
Well, I think that was the first one that would make you look through some little holes in the wall, and then you would see things kind of like flashing apart, and it would create this anticipation of what's in the next room type of thing. And that would scare the crap out of me. Like just knowing that there's something bad in there and I have to open the door and I'm probably going to die or poo my pants, either or, but I knew that it was coming, and then you have to kind of like build your own kind of strength up to go and do what they're trying to get you to do.
No, I love those tropes in games. Like one of my favorites, it's in a lot of games, is when like your character for whatever reason is in some type of closet or cabinet or something. And so now it's in real time and you're just waiting for that, like something to be like go right in front of the cabinet or something. It just keeps you going. It gets you worried. Some games more than others, you know what I mean?
And you're hearing footsteps and stuff like that is just terrifying in horror games.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing that does add to horror games is the sound. Not just the music, which has to be good too. If it's good, that's a plus. But you also need real good like audio effects, good triggers for things. Going back to Silent Hill, one thing that to this day, if I hear white noise, I'll instantly think, "Oh no, there's something around." Because Silent Hill, I'll think that before I think of anything else. If I listen to white noise,
but remember I told you a while back now. I think Layers of Fear did that in a game, the white noise. But I played it on the PlayStation 5 version. So you play the start of the game, you probably get about half an hour into the game, and then out of the PlayStation 5 speaker, they just put this really low white noise kind of coming along, and you are not ready for it. You're kind of there going, hang on, where's that sound coming from? And you're looking around the room thinking that the room, like it just immerses you in this horror game so much more because you start like kind of panicking. You're kind of expecting it to come from the TV, but it's coming out of the controller. And I'm saying to my wife, can you hear that? And it's only just really dull, so you can't even hear it properly. And it's just enough to like scare the crap out of you, and you just, not ready. And then you're kind of looking around your room, getting more paranoid. It creates the paranoia.
Little tricks like that have always impressed me. One thing you do see, like, I honestly couldn't tell you what was the first game to do it, but any game where like tense stuff is happening to your character or someone else's character, so there's like a heartbeat and your controller starts shaking like the heartbeat. That's that's been around. That's nothing new. But I always thought that was like effective tool.
Yeah.
And for any like for the scariness alone, not like counting it for like health or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree. I also wanted to go back to that 2D kind of game. Little Nightmares is probably the only one. It's like a Limbo type of game, but it actually did get me a little bit scared in a couple of moments in that game. More just from intensity, because they would have like you had to run a path and you only had a very, very short time to do it. And this thing would kill you if you didn't. And that, I think sometimes intensity in a game like that, only giving you a really, really small window, can add to a fear level as well. So that you're right about different layers of fear. Oh, game drop.
Since you mentioned that, like, if you mentioned it's a lot like Limbo, like how would you compare it to Limbo exactly? Or did you say it's like you described it as being Limbo-ish?
Limbo. Well, so Limbo is very. you can't see the character. If anyone hasn't played it, go and play it. It's like one of the greatest 2D games of all time.
Limbo is
Yeah.
a classic, a masterpiece.
So in that game, it's different colors of gray, basically. Where in Little Nightmares, you can see a bit better, and everything's in color. Every character is made in 3D, but it's a 2.5D platformer. So there's depth to a scene, so you can move backwards and forwards in the screen. So it just adds a little bit more of a dimension to the puzzles of what you can do in the game. You don't think you can get past something, but you can kind of actually go towards the back of the room and go up in the corner or something like that, which is not something that's present in Limbo. So, yeah, it's basically more like that.
Nice.
I haven't played. Well, I think I bought number 2. I don't know if I have, but number 1 was a really good, solid game. Especially if what was the sequel to Limbo, or the game that they created?
Oh, Inside.
Yeah.
Inside's a great one. I love it.
Yeah, so Inside is probably more comparable to Little Nightmares. They're very similar.
I like the theme and the look of Limbo more, but I like the actual gameplay of Inside more.
Yeah.
Like that's how I always thought of it.
Yeah.
They're both great. Like both have all qualities, but just like that was my main difference from that. Another good I consider this it's a cerebral 2D platformer. It's scary. It's Closure. It's honestly, it's one of the few games where I couldn't tell you, if I could guess a year, I'd say 2010 because it was a PS3 game.
Yeah.
Like that, it's monochrome, just black and white. It kind of has, I don't want to say like a crayonish outline to it, but it's almost as like someone stenciled the characters looking. And in this game, it's completely black, except for where the light orbs are.
Yeah.
So you got to be carrying one of them or following one of them, because if there's no light, and then the ground just goes away and you just fall and the level starts over immediately. Like Super Meat Boy, and that was because then you couldn't see the whole level, and like you'd only see more of the level as you progress through. It's like 10 puzzles, and then you have a long puzzle in that world's beat. That was a very unsettling game for me.
Side question, it just came to my head. Do you think it's better to have a horror game with puzzles or with more action, violent shooting?
And that's the thing. That like there are movies. You got horror movies like Saw. Let's just say that's about puzzles. That has a more cerebral tack to it. But then you got horror movies like Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah,
which is fighting off the legion of the reanimated. So personally, my thing is I love puzzle games, but I'll always choose action over puzzles. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I there are puzzles games I love. I love the Portal series. Stuff like Tetris is good. I do like I don't even want to try to. I like Tetris Attack. All right, I like Tetris Attack. I'm not gonna try to pronounce it because I'm gonna fuck. I am going to butcher the actual. It's on the Switch. It's a good puzzle game. Pokemon Puzzle League. Play Pokemon Puzzle. It's also called Pokemon Puzzle League. Do that.
As part 2 to my question, do you think that using that part of your brain that solves puzzles, kind of you're super focused? Do you think that's like a tactic in the game of, hey, we'll super focus people in on these puzzles. They'll think about it, and then when they get out of the puzzle, they're kind of more focused on everything that's happening around them. So then the jump scares is a lot easier. It's a lot easier to make people scared in a puzzle game almost.
Well, while I definitely say that like the more methodical, cerebral approach, like the puzzle approach, is better suited to horror games for that reason. Mm-hmm. Because now you can execute a decent jump scare.
Yeah.
Action game, here the most stereotypical jump scare I can think of: OG Resident Evil 1, and I mean not even the GameCube remake, the original one.
Yeah.
It might be in the GameCube remake, but I think they actually took it out just so they knew you were expecting it. The first kind of like hallway you run down, and there's just windows. You're running, boom, dog crashes through, scary music, fight him off or he'll kill you, kind of thing. And it was very effective, like incredibly effective. But as time went on, and I would play Resident Evil, back in the day, like 6 times. Now it was just like you knew it was going to happen, so it was gone. Like the thrill was gone from that. Of course, now it's tempered when I do play the game. It's like, oh, I remember that. Yeah, now it's nostalgic more than anything else.
Yeah. So the game that I played, back to the start, we'll go again. The game that I played the other day that was my horror kind of contribution is a game called Holstin. So it's spelled Holstin. Now, it's actually a 2D top-down game. But what makes it unusual is that you can press your left and right bumper and rotate around the room to look different angles in the room. And then you can actually press another button to go into first person mode. So when you're actually doing your shooting scenes, you can kind of just get into the character view, and then you can go and shoot people first on, and then you get like that scary kind of feel because everything's kind of coming at you from like front on. So it's a weird 2D version, but they've manipulated it to be a way different type of experience because of the camera angles that you're getting in the game. I think it's definitely worth checking that one out if you're kind of interested in horror games and you want something a bit different. It's not out just yet, but it's coming out very soon. And there's another horror game that just released, and it's on my list of things to do also. It's called Don't Scream. So Don't Scream, you need to have your microphone. Yeah, you need to have your microphone on, and the game's only about 20 minutes long.
20 minutes?
Wow. Yeah, but hear me out. It's one of those games where you have to play through the game, and if you scream, you're insta-killed, and you have to start the game again.
Huh. Oh.
Yeah. So you've got to try and be brave enough to get through the game without screaming. If they jump scare you and you scream, that's it. Just restart the game.
Oh, wow. That's clever. It's clever. I'm reading up on it. Yeah, wow. That's a very interesting game.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So, no, it's all right. Yeah. What other horror games are you been playing lately?
Gotta go back. One game I was able to finish and put up on my channel was Super Castlevania 4. Took me a while, and I gotta say, I kind of ate it.
Yeah.
Like, I was able to get through it reasonably well, but, like, I died in some stupid parts that I should not have died in at all. Like, I don't know where the hell. Like, my Castlevania 1, that's a harder game. I didn't die until I got to the last level. This one, I was dying like 3 levels in. It wasn't that good. It's probably one I'm gonna revisit at some point. Another game I was gonna do is I was gonna play Fear, but for some reason when I started playing, and Fear's a great game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to crap on Fear. It like that, and its sequels are really good at eliciting that horror, especially for a game like that does have a lot of action. Fear is an action. It borderline looks like just like a squad shooter. You know what I mean? At points, yeah. But that has the creepiest parts to it. But just playing that kind of got me thinking about actually, I don't know if you call it a horror game necessarily, but one game that does elicit fear is Half-Life. That does have a very unsettling kind of situation. And I thought to myself, even though that was scary, the Black Mesa remake to me was much scarier because it's a lot darker for one thing, and it looks a lot better. So I actually started playing that as my like Halloween game, along with Castlevania 4. That took me like all month just to do a decent run through of.
So be honest, when you're setting your brightness at the start of the game, how bright is it?
I've been looking at screens since 1988. All right, probably not a good idea, but I did it, so oh well.
But no, I don't go with dark either. I get scared.
No, like even I hate I finally figured out a way to manage it, but anytime I saw something was in HDR, I was just like, ugh. Like, oh boy, gotta crank this up now, because it makes the lights really nice looking, but it makes the darks really dark. You don't see any shadowing, like just shadow effects at all. At least I don't. So yeah, a lot of games I gotta crank that up.
Yeah. Okay, here's an unpopular opinion from myself.
All right.
Space games aren't as scary. Like everyone goes Alien, Isolation, and Dead Space are super scary games. I just don't know. I don't get scared in outer space.
And that's like, okay, you're reserved to that opinion, and I see where you're getting at because you want more. Now, is it more of like a familiar setting? Like when you,
I think so.
When you talk about getting scared in these games, where exactly are you getting scared? Are they gruesome hellscapes with heads stuck on pikes, or are they just like a house?
Probably the scariest ones are in more familiar grounds. You're probably onto something here. You psychologist, Woody. You've probably unlocked my childhood problems.
Hey,
like
don't quit my day
houses.
job. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, you're probably right. The more familiar, I do think that actually plays into a scare factor. Like the Resident Evils are taking you through this house, and you can kind of identify everything in the house. There's some stairs, there's a pot. Oh shit, there's a head in that pot, but that's okay. I can kind of deal with that,
Like you can accept things going south, like in outer space, or Doom's hellish, the places that you've never been to. You gotta not go to. Hey, I might be an astronaut someday. Who knows? But at the same time, because of that, if you were just like in your house and all of a sudden like the walls start bleeding, now it's scary because that's your safe zone. That's the one place that shouldn't be doing this, and now it is. So now you're really unsettled.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I 100% see where you're going with that.
Yeah, so I can see why a space setting. Because, yeah, sure, you don't want to be chased by monsters, but if it's in some, like, giant Enterprise-looking Hulk floating around in space, it kind of takes you out of it a bit. I get that.
Yeah. I do think, like, BioShock, even though it's not the typical horror game, I found the first one to give me quite a bit of a few jump scares in that. I found that, I don't know, people kind of say that's a scary horror game, but to me it's more probably it's got a lot of a thriller kind of vibe about it. It's intense.
That's more of like there are a couple jump scares that I can think of in the game. There are. I just can't think of particularly one right now. But just like once again the location, it's 1950s Americana Art Deco. Recognizable to certain movies, to certain music styles. Culture in of its own. But just the fact that it's underwater now, like that alone is strange. And it's not like with, even what we consider technologically advanced, like with computers and stuff, it's still reel to reel, 1960s technology. So while it's not necessarily familiar because we've never, at least I haven't because I wasn't alive in the 60s, don't know that world, we recognize like the traits of that world. So I could see that being definitely scarier than, say, a space themed, if you had BioShock in space, which would be System Shock, honestly. Which, honestly...
Well, that was BioShock in the air. What was that one, Forever? Or
yeah, one thing I should say about System Shock 2, it's a great game, but I wouldn't consider that necessarily to be... I'm not going to ruin the twist, but everyone knows it. I wouldn't say that game was necessarily scary. There was like no... It was a lot more methodical than BioShock, I'll say that. BioShock, like... Personally, I thought BioShock flowed a bit better, but System Shock 2 was still good. System Shock 1, that's rough. That was a rough one.
I know that you're not the greatest of online multiplayers. That's not your strong point. But is there any online games that you found to be fun multiplayer?
What if I told you right now I was in a collaboration with someone in an online scary multiplayer game?
Are you the same
Like right
guy?
now.
Who is this?
Yes. Well, here's the thing, though. It's I've been doing a Left 4 Dead 2. Well, technically Left 4 Dead 1 because we're doing the Left 4 Dead 1 scenarios. But yeah, we're doing Left 4 Dead. So and honestly, I gotta say, it's nice dipping my toes back into the online world after being away from it since. When did Modern Warfare 2 come out? The original Modern Warfare 2, not the new one.
I think.
Yeah. Jimmy Carter was president. I remember those days. So it's nice to get back into that. I just wish I was a little better. A while back, and honestly, this is kind of scary. It's a horror, bloody game. I played some Quake Champions.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just testing the rig. I hadn't yet played an online multiplayer game on my computer, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it with some Quake. I'm gonna break it in with that.
Yeah.
And the good news is I was on the winning team. The bad news is I was horrible. I was very horrible. So I decided to gracefully step out of that. I was like, all right, this is the highest note I'll leave out on, so I'll do that. So yeah, I'd rather play with than against at any time. And I think that makes the horror games too a good candidate for that. Although there are good, like Friday the 13th game. That was a very scary game, and that was multiplayer. That was one versus many, whatever they call that, PvP, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that was actually, I will say that game was quite scary. Because how the music reacts and stuff like that, and it reminds you of the movie.
Oh, it does have probably that anticipation too. It's a hide and go seek vibe to it that when you're hiding somewhere and you're waiting for someone to get you, you know that they're coming. It's only a matter of time before you're going to get attacked or whatnot. And yeah, it's easy for that to be a problem, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I
mean, what about the one where you've got Devour is one of these type of games. There's a few of them, and there's a bad computer the bad computer enemy that is taking on the players that are obviously online players. Do you like that version of events where you've got to explore a house together? Phasmophobia is another one like that you explore the house together and then you don't know what's going to happen, but it's all predetermined by how they've designed the game. I find that can be fun. They can be both scary but not scary because you have
there's a bit of a yeah.
Yeah, well, it depends on who you play with. If you play with people that are easy to jump scare and that, you get their vibes and you get scared. If you play with people that are real tough, there's just a ghost there. It's no big drama.
Yeah,
that can
one
ruin
thing
the vibe.
about that. One thing too is just by default at the end, it's always scarier alone. Mm-hmm. So even if you in a group of friends, and then you could be the best of friends just playing online, the fact that you guys are together, experiences this all at the same time, I think it kind of lessens it. And not so much it lessens it because you're still having fun. It's still a great time. It's still a great time playing games. That's the best time. But I don't think one would actually get frightened, so to say.
Oh, well, I kind of would disagree on that a little bit because if one of my friends screams, then I'm just getting scared too. I can't remember what this game was that we played, but it was a game that if we talked to each other, the louder that we talked, the more that the NPC bad guy could hear us. And so we could talk to each other over our headsets in the game, but if we're whispering and we're right near each other, the NPC couldn't hear us. And then if we were on the other side of the map and we were kind of yelling at each other, the NPC could find us a lot easier. So it was an interesting kind of take on that, using your voice against you. But once you got found out once or twice, you knew how the jump scare was going to go, and the scare kind of went, I guess, like a lot of those horror games.
But I mean, like, the more they immerse you, or you and your friends, or you and your enemies, yeah, I'm sure the better the experience will be overall anyway. And
Yeah.
that's really what you're going for, the catharsis, whether you're, watching an old movie, or even reading a book, or playing a video game.
Yeah.
I would say, though, when it comes to playing multiplayer, just like even like scary games, I definitely would always want to be working with and against. Like that's with any game, honestly. And there are plenty of horror games that let you do that.
Yeah, that's true. Are you Friday Nights at Freddy? I know that's one of your favorite scary games of all time because they stole. You've got to tell. Got to tell everyone. Go.
I will tell you. Okay, actually. Okay, it's too high up there. I'm not going to reach for it. But 2 games. First is Night Trap. I don't get that, but I do got Double Switch starring Corey Haim. And don't get me wrong, Five Nights at Freddy's is way better than those 2 games. Like, there's no comparison. They're just better games.
Yeah,
I'll contend to that. From what I played of Five Nights at Freddy, it plays more fluidly than the rigidness of these movies, because that's the thing. They take place at predetermined times, no matter what. But it's the same thing. You trap. You wait. You hit the trigger at the right part. You save for now, you're safe. Both Night Trap and Double Switch also had that mechanic. But the problem there was that it was predetermined. Actually, back in the day, I was such a weird kid. I actually timed out. Like, I had a timer, and I would be like, okay, room 1, room 7, room 6, room 5, room 4, room 8, room 8. Like, go whatever was the next one. Just so I could. Yeah, just so I could. I tried it with Double Switch. Is a little tougher because you actually have to watch more cutscenes. Keep in mind, these games full motion video. It was recorded footage of actors and actresses. Night Trap had, of course, the different stroke star Dana Plato, and Double Switch. Double Switch had a lot of people. It had Corey Haim, Deborah Harry, John Aston, father Sean Aston. I like that game's vibe better. It's just so cheesy and terrible, It's just awesome. So when Five Nights at Freddy's first came out, I even thought to myself, like, oh wow. And I was always hoping that maybe, a kid that's super into Five Nights at Freddy's and likes the game and all that happens to look on, I'd be like, oh, this game Night Trap is like Five Nights at Freddy's. I think I'll try this. If that happens, then I'm happy. I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, there's actually another one of these that's come out that's I'm trying to find what it's called again. It's like The Observer or something like that. It's
The Observer. Yeah, no, I heard that.
I can't find
PS5, right?
No, I'm looking on Steam. Oh, well, I'm looking Steam at the moment, so I can find.
Like, you're an astronaut, right?
No. This one is like the same thing where you've got like the cameras and you're going through the different rooms and you're looking at all the different cameras to see where you've got to go and when you've got to go there, and so you don't get caught. Basically, using the cameras against the bad guys, Friday Nights at Freddy's style. And have you seen the Friday Nights at Freddy movie?
Me? No, I have not yet seen that. I probably will have to buckle down and watch it with my niece at some point, but yeah.
I heard it was terrible. So
even the bad video game movies to me are still video game movies. And even if I really don't connect with the video game, I still feel the need to defend it, even no matter how terrible it is. It can be terrible. There are bad video game movies, like real bad, but they still represent. They represent my passion.
They represent what we love them. We love you all. It's like
it's like if I gotta watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation, I will watch Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Sure. I remember watching Blood Rain. That was rough.
So what are your scariest movies of all time? Let's go to something super scary. Have you got a list of a couple of the most scariest movies that I should never play?
Movies you should never play?
Games. Sorry, games.
Well, actually, Actually, you know what? Because of that, I'm gonna tie in. I don't think it's the best scary movie, the game adaptation of all time, but no, game. But the best. It is the best scary movie to scary. But a lot of people don't consider it a scary movie. Have you ever seen The Thing? John Carpenter's The Thing.
No.
Okay, it's a movie about this shape-shifted alien that can assimilate and absorb organic living tissue and mimic anything, like as long as they get contact with it. It doesn't do it instantaneously though. It's a very gruesome process, like very gruesome process. And this team in Antarctica, led by I think it's McCready, played by Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
Great casting. James Cromwell, Keith David's in it. As it starts to assimilate people, they don't know who's human and who's not human. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So now there's this level of paranoia, and it's very. Once again, we're talking about familiarity. It's in Antarctica. You know what I mean? Or it could be actually in like the Arctic Circle. It's in one of the poles. I'm pretty sure Antarctica. So they're isolated. You know, there's nothing around them. They might as well be on another planet. But
Yeah.
it's still, it's still Earth. It's still like a enclosure that slowly gets destroyed because they're fighting this alien menace. And it is as far as the movie goes, anything that frightens you in a movie frightens you in this movie. Like, it's got the jump scares, it's got the unsettlement, it's got the music soundtrack, and all the pieces to make a brilliant horror movie are in this movie. The game itself doesn't quite reach that, but they did it well. It tried to feed off that. For the record, the Thing video game, it's a third-person shooter.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe think of a more arcadey Resident Evil when it comes to fighting enemies, but there's
Right.
a little caveat to that I'll get into.
Yeah.
But you gain helpers and friends, allies, comrade, whatever they're called. Some pack heat, some are medic. They might be healers and stuff like that, but they can get infected with this Thing virus and become like monsters and shit. So occasionally you might have a blood tester. You need to test them to make sure that they're all right, because you might be going to a place where you do not want them to turn into bad guys. You know what I mean? So, and if you test them and it's fine, it just goes fine. But if the Thing explodes, then back up, unload. You know what I mean? Like, now you got to fight this thing. So it does create kind of a very tense moment in the game. It did it very well.
No, that sounds like an interesting mechanic to have. I don't know. I'm probably not going to play that. It sounds too scary for me. Is that your scariest game of all time, or is it on your list of scariest games? Where are we going to rate that?
Okay, so I'm gonna give a shout out to my scariest game, like what I think overall is the scariest game, and then I'm gonna go with scariest moment in a game, because the scariest moment in a game is kind of a scary game, but not really like a scary game enough to go there. You know what I mean? It's more action based. I'm trying to go with a game that I would say everything. It's unsettling, the music's good, and all that. For my personal favorite, and it's low hanging fruit because it's everyone's personal favorite, I think I'm gonna go with Silent Hill 2.
Okay, so that's not my personal favorite. So, but
as I said, Silent Hill 1 started it. That was really the first game that I played that had everything: the music, the jump scares, the creepiness, the puzzles. You had to think about some things. Resident Evil was a little too actiony for me. You were still a cop. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. You were just a regular guy. Being attacked by these monsters with all this weird stuff going on, confusing stuff. Silent Hill 2 ramped that up. It ramped it up, especially when it came to plot and story. I'm not going to go deep into it because if no one out there has played it, once again, people are probably sick of people talking about how great Silent Hill 2 is. It is that great. Believe the hype with that game when it comes to fear and terror. Playing it today still instills a little bit of unsettledness to me. In particular, there are some scenes. To anyone that does play might listen to this, and because I do want to give it a recommendation, heavy trigger warning. All right, I'm not gonna go deep into it. I'm just gonna say research it first before you play it. But to me, that is like the creepiest, scariest. Oh my god, what's going on here? Game that I've ever played. Like the best one. There are scarier games. There are scarier games. There are games that scare me more. But I don't care how good a scary game
no,
is.
but where's it? What's the one that scared you the most? Then, Silent Hill's the best scary game.
Okay, well,
what's
to get into
scared?
that, the creepiest part that I've played in any video game ever is recent. It's Resident Evil Village. It's that baby part where the giant baby thing is chasing you. Like. That is tough, dude. It like when I did a replay through, like I put that off. Like it's that creepy to me. Like that is like the most. It's the combination of everything. Where you are, the music, the thing that's chasing you, the sounds that the thing that's chasing you is making, like hiding under the bed, all that. Oh, that like, and it's weird too because like the rest of the game is not that frightening and intense. Like it's scary enough. You're fighting monsters, the Resident Evil thing that you always do, but that one scene, like they knocked it out of the park when it came to really just being frightening.
Yeah.
Like even now, I don't think anything touched it. Honestly, as far as the horror games of today, they're scary, but I don't know. It's almost like I think they're trying a little too hard to elicit the response. You know, you need to go for the gameplay, honestly. And some of these, as fun as they sound and as like out there they sound, at the end of the day, I still want to play a game. Like that's first and foremost. The scaring part should be the secondary, no matter what it is. Like even if it's Silent Hill or even if it was Resident Evil Village.
Yeah, well, my scariest game. Okay, well, I'll go with my runner-up first. Because I do believe you're right. You do need the story part that actually kind of helps the other parts out, if you know what I mean. But my runner-up of scariest game would be Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. I found the start of that game just terrifying. It took me 10 attempts just to get past the first part of that. Once I got into the main house, I was fine. But just to get into the main house took me 10 attempts. I could not get past that. It was so scary.
And the part where you revisited at the end, like
I haven't got to that bit yet. I'm only halfway through that. Oh my god! So now I'm not going to be able to finish the game.
Sorry, man. I thought you were talking about the game. I assume.
Well, I've got into the house now, and I'm kind of finding it okay. Like I'm good now. Like I've only just got past that first part. So
it's all right because then all of a sudden Barry from Resident Evil 1 burst in with the machine gun and you bow everyone down and you fly away.
It's all safety. Safety. But my scariest game of all time, and if you don't agree, put that in the comments. My scariest game of all time is 10 years old now. Outlast. Have you ever played this game?
I have, and good choice is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say good choice. That was definitely. I never got unsettled enough to stop playing it, but you know, it did its trick. I
still haven't finished that game. I cannot get past it.
That was one of the first PlayStation 4 games I got when I got my PS4. So, like, I was like super into it. So, like, and I knew it was first off, it was on PS Plus. Which is, I was like, okay. And it's weird to think that PS Plus is that old, huh? But yeah, it came out, and I played. It's a short game. It's a short enough game, so it didn't take me too long. And yeah, that it was. I haven't played part 2 yet, but part 1, that game definitely, yeah, like that the part where you're in that jail part.
I've not made it past there, so I just can't do it. That game gives me nightmares for weeks. I cannot do that game. It's too real for me.
I love the part. I thought this was a good mechanic when you're running from things and you can press the button and then it kind of slows down and you look behind you and then you're running again. I thought that was a great mechanic, and it would be so scary because then you'd see the dude like they're after you. So,
and I also love the night vision camera, because I feel like that just changed the mood completely. As soon as it went to the green camera, the black and white, it felt so real, because back then, you got to remember 10 years ago, 3D games looked good, but not as great as they do right now. So having that green camera, it just made it feel like it was almost real. And so, yeah, I just can't do it.
Oh yeah, that was. Oh, how far did you get into Outlast?
10 minutes.
If anyone,
you know when you walk into the room and then you walk into this big room and these guys are standing there still, right? And they're like looking, and then I pick something up and then I walk back past them and then they come alive and then I threw my controller and turned the TV off and we burnt the game. That was it.
I'm just gonna say this. I'm trying not to spoil too much. There's a part later in the game. It involves scissors. It's not a good part. I'm just gonna say that right now. You might not want to play this game.
No,
Now that I think of it, I love Silent Hill 2, and like as a game, it's better than that. But in terms of like just like eliciting fear, yeah, you may have knocked it out right there. Outlast is cool.
It was just way too much for. I've never played a game so scary in my life. I'm really curious on the new Outlast that just came out probably like 6 months ago, and it's a co-op Outlast.
See, I haven't played Outlast 2 yet, and Outlast 2 has a completely different plot and like thing going for it. It's not at least I checked it on Wikipedia. At the very least, maybe there's a tie-in, somewhere there, but I didn't see one.
I played Outlast 2 for longer. I didn't find that nearly as scary. It was so much easier to get through. I played probably an hour of that. It was nowhere near as scary because I only bought it to see if they've actually kept up that scare thing, and no, they hadn't.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, I heard it wasn't as like good as the first one, but yeah, people liked it, and from what I heard, that I heard different things. A friend of mine liked it. A friend of mine didn't like it. Definitely, though, the first one, like the one I played, that was a good choice. But what would you say? What would you say is like the scariest scene? Doesn't have to be necessarily the scariest game, but like the scariest thing you ever experienced in a game.
Scariest thing I've ever experienced in a game. I think that layers of fear thing with the controller. I was just not expecting it, and it just
that's real. That the fact that's coming from the controller that makes it just that much cooler. You know what I mean?
And you can only experience that on PlayStation 5 even. So you can't. Oh no, you could do it on 4 as well, but because 4 had that in the controller as well, didn't it? But nothing else. So Xbox and all that. Don't even buy it on those. Just buy it on PlayStation 5. Pee your pants. Return the game. It's fine.
Get your money back.
Yeah. All those things.
Pick up Spider-Man. Enjoy that.
Move away. So yeah, I found that was probably and your scariest moment in the game, in the world.
Well,
you did.
Well,
that.
No. For me, it's still Red
the big baby. I was going to say that someone has modded that in the modding community. Someone has modded that big baby into Homer Simpson, so he chases you. So people like you that get scared.
I mean, it'll be make it less scary, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with all that. I don't think there's a whole lot more scariness that we can do.
Well, I'm just gonna say that the evolution of the scary video game, the horror genre of video games, is ever evolving and branching off in so many great paths. I just love the fact that much like its movies and other forms of literature, video games themselves have a good horror library. For when the lights go out and there's a full moon present.
Well, actually, you are a VR guy. That's the next step of horror games, and I cannot even think of putting a headset on and playing a horror game. Have you played a VR horror game yet?
Yeah, Resident Evil Village, and I am not looking forward to the baby part. I will say that right. That I might actually just do, screen, because I don't know if I could do that VR. It's just I'll say this, and once again, Resident Evil Village is definitely more action based than really being scared, but being in VR helps because now just the fact that you're there, it's just you feel more. It works better. You know what I mean? It just works better. It's get there. It's not perfect. You're clearly still got like you feel carpet.
Yeah.
You still clearly feel carpet, but it does it well. I really haven't touched. A friend of mine actually recommended The Room. He said play that. He said that, but that's more of just a strict puzzle game. But he says there's like a little sinister undertone to it. So who knows? I might give that a try.
I just think headset. I'd probably puke and pee at the same time. I'm not the best at horror games to start with, and to fully immerse myself like that just frightens me beyond belief. I feel like if you're a game developer and you're making these horror games in a full VR, you've probably got to take people's lives into consideration because it could get like almost to a scary point. So I've really taken this show to the depths right now.
Hey, there is a limit, and where that limit is, I hope I never take a look at it.
But yeah, so let's end with something fun. What are you looking forward to playing this week?
Sorry, you broke up, man.
Oh, sorry. I said, let's end with something fun. What are you looking forward to playing this week?
Actually, I started up my Twitch channel. I didn't really stop it, but I kind of want to focus on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I start up a Skyrim quest. I'm doing Skyrim on my computer, modded.
Yeah.
Reasonable mods. I'm not going crazy. I'm not putting any weird overlays or anything like that. It's just strictly different quests, different items. There is a Mario Brothers themed quest I do plan on doing soon. I got to find time between because I'm still going through Black Mesa, and my Duke Nukem levels are still going strong, so I haven't stopped those.
Okay, no, that sounds fun.
Yeah, you go.
Oh, I'm gonna try and play Stanley. What's that? Stanley Kubrick or something like that. Whatever that game's called. I just bought it the other day on PlayStation. The weird room one where the rooms are really weird, and I think it might be a horror game now that I think about it. I'm probably going to be scared.
Well, one thing before we do cut off, I just want to ask you because it sounds like you do get scared from these video games.
Yes. Yeah.
But you do like that at the end. You're looking for that. You want something that can break it.
No.
You're not. You're not at all. Okay.
I only play it for people's entertainment or my wife's entertainment. Either or.
Oh, okay.
It's not for my own entertainment.
Never for your entertainment.
Yeah, no.
You suffer for your art. Yes.
Yeah. I'm doing it for the people, for the other people, not for myself. I can never. Yeah, I don't actually sleep for a couple of weeks after that. I can't do multiple playthroughs of multiple horror games. It's just too much for my little brain. And yeah, that's on that bombshell. We'll just end up finishing up the show. Stick around next week. We'll do episode 12. I don't know what we'll do next week. It'll be anything gaming.
Anything gaming.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. Thanks again, Woody, and we will talk to you guys later. Goodbye.